Hello and welcome to A Sense of Centerville in Washington Township, your place for stories about ordinary and extraordinary residents and places in the Centerville and Washington Township area. I'm Susan from Centerville, Washington History, and I look forward to hearing your story. Today, my guest is Dr. Thomas Connair. Dr. Thomas Connair owned the Centerville Animal Hospital on Franklin Street until he retired and closed the business in 2001, after about 40 years of serving the community. The business opened in the early 1960s, and he began caring for cattle from the surrounding farms. Dr. Connair began his studies at the University of Dayton in mechanical engineering, but transferred to the Ohio State University to complete his degree in the study of animal science. Thank you for joining us today.
Oh, you're welcome.
So please describe your childhood growing up in Dayton.
Oh, okay. Well, I grew up in East Dayton. We were an average family, or maybe a little bit below average family. My dad stood in bread lines during the Depression, and I was born before the Depression, but it still affected the whole family. We lived in a two-bedroom, which probably at one time was a three-bedroom house, but the third bedroom they converted into a huge bathroom. And so I had 5 brothers and 1 sister, and the 6 boys all slept in one bedroom with 2 pairs of bunks and then a couple of small single beds. And Susan slept in the bedroom with my mom and dad. As far as my early childhood, we lived next to a paved alley, so we had a really good playground for skating, bicycling, kick the can, any of those sidewalk type of
games and activities.
Yeah.
And
so at an early age, like age 6, I had 4 brothers who were in a group called Westbrook Singing Boys, and they were made up of just about 20 to 30 boys, sponsored by Westbrook Funeral Home. And we went around and sang at various places and sang, surprisingly, mostly German songs. But that was mostly because Dick Westbrook, who was our director, came from a German family. So anyhow, after a year with them, I qualified at age 7 to join the Inland Children's Chorus, which was sponsored by Inland Division of General Motors. And that was a 100-voice concert choir. And there were additional ones that didn't make the concert choir. And we sang for Inland Manufacturing Division for their Christmas parties and for a spring concert. And so we, and at one time, I think it was December of 41, we sang a Christmas concert from the stage of the Art Institute, and it was carried nationwide through WLW in Cincinnati, which was quite a stroke of genius as far as being able to schedule something like that. As far as work experience, I think I was in the 6th grade, when one of my brothers called from out at Dayton Country Club, and he and another brother caddied out there in the summertime, and they were having a tournament and needed extra caddies, so they volunteered me to be a caddy, and that was an interesting thing. At the Dayton Country Club, I met a lot of influential people. Not that it really helped me, but it was one of those things that you could put on your resume.
Yeah, yeah.
When we had a tournament there, I happened to be the one to caddy for Bob Service, his dad was from Service and Buell Restaurant downtown. And Bob was a pro, and he was easy to caddy for, and he was great to be around. So when I got to be in high school, must have been when I was about 14 years old, that I went to Rolf Zetlitz, who owned Dayton Floral Products at that time, and got a job with him working in the greenhouses. And it so happened that we were doing a lot of cutting of philodendron plants and sending them someplace where they were being rooted and then put back on the market. The only problem there was that I contracted philodendron poisoning.
Oh, no.
And it was worse than poison ivy. So it just more or less took over my whole body, and I had to get out of the greenhouses. And after I had healed, then I started to work with the Gus Hirsch florist on 2nd Street downtown. And that I was a general flunky, I guess you'd call it, maybe. I folded boxes for cut flowers. I cleaned the walk-in refrigerator and all that kind of stuff. And then also made local deliveries, such as places like Reich's and Van Cleve Hotel. And that was about it as far as that took me up through to college days. I think that's about where we'd say on that.
Yeah. So after college, after high school, what did you do?
After high school?
Yeah.
Well,
Did you have some military service after?
That wasn't until after college,
Okay.
after my bachelor's degree. When I graduated from Chaminade, then I went to, seems like I went to work for NCR in their outside department, which meant I did a lot of cutting of grass and worked around the shrubbery and all that kind of thing. It was interesting. But then I got into UD, and the first thing there was they hired me along with a bunch of other students to plot curves, and I don't know what those things were for, but it was a project from right field. And my opinion was that was the forerunner of the University of Dayton Research Institute.
Oh, the Research
That's
Institute.
what it
Okay.
became.
All right.
Okay. I had that for just one summer. And then following that, the next summer, I got on again with with NCR and worked in the outside department again. And then the following summer, I worked for Montgomery County Environmental Services as an inspector on water lines and sewer lines. And that kept me busy during the summer. Then after that, I was finished with my bachelor's degree finally, and I came home from Ohio State and called the draft board to tell them I was finished with my schooling up to that point, and I hadn't been accepted yet at the veterinary college. So they said, well, we'll go ahead and draft you then. And they said, but we'll give you an option. You can go back to school and work on a master's degree. However, if you don't do that, we'll draft you. And the only trouble was I had an ace up my sleeve, and that was the fact that after 2 years of ROTC at University of Dayton, I transferred into reserves, Naval Reserve, and was an active duty person on Naval Reserve right on through to about when I finished up at Ohio State. And then the Naval Reserve, when they found out that they were going to draft me, they said, just tell us when you want to come in on active duty, and we'll cut orders for you to beat their draft, which turned out to be fine. And so I don't know if you want to go any further on that line, but that's more to the story.
Yeah. How did you tell me about changing to animal science?
Oh, okay. When I was in grade school, I had a good friend who, his grandparents had a farm up in Dark County. And they also had a son who was a veterinarian. And my friend his family used to invite me to go along with them up to the farm and spend a weekend up there. We'd go up during the summer when they were threshing or making ice cream or things like that. And so the exposure I got there to the farm animals, and then seeing my friend's uncle at work with the farm animals, it just kind of sat there in the back of my head. And when I had such a difficult time with mechanical engineering with quadratic equations, I decided that was the way I wanted to go, was to work towards veterinary medicine. So,
Yeah, well, I think a lot of people make that decision based upon the classes that they don't like to take.
right.
So that's great. So why did you start your business in Centerville?
Well, I knew that there was an establishment on Far Hills, and I figured this was 2 miles away. And the funny thing was that the combine who owned the acreage that I wanted a part of, they said, we'll sell you, I think it was a fourth of an acre or a third of an acre. And please don't tell anybody that you're going to go in there until you get the building underway. And so they thought that having a veterinary hospital around was a detriment, and I proved that it wasn't. So
Yeah, because you were You did a great job,
Yeah,
40 years. So your business was located, on Franklin Street near Clio Road,
right.
is that right? And, did you ever travel to farms to take care of
Oh
animals?
yeah.
Okay, so
Um,
tell a
I
little bit about that.
I had a couple of farmers on back then on Marshall Road, and they were both hog farmers, and I took care of vaccinations and all with the pigs. Um, Other than that, there were other farmers around who they I just I don't know how to qualify them. They were mostly NCR workers who had a few acres,
Mhm.
and so they would wait until after they'd had dinner, and then they'd go out to see where old Bessie was, or uh, how the one sow was, whether it was having trouble having pigs, things like that. And it got to be kind of old stuff when you had to go out there at 10 o'clock at night, and it just did, after a while, it just didn't work for me. So I did go well, in my first year out of school, I was in a mixed practice out in Southern Illinois, and and we had pretty good size large animal practice and a good size small animal practice. But um, it worked out for me that it was just too much running around and not enough work.
Mhm. So taking care of pets is a lot easier because it's during the daytime,
Right,
and that's what you ended up
right.
doing more of
I
people's
did
pets.
mostly small animal, but then I once in a while got an exotic in. Uh, had a miniature boa that people couldn't find until one night they had a pole lamp lit, and they saw the snake drop out from the pole lamp and then got burned.
Oh, no.
So,
So you had to take care of the burn on
right.
the snakes.
Yes.
Okay. And any other animals that you took care of that were unusual?
Well, almost. Um, I had an ocelot brought in that I tried to get out of the cage and didn't work. So I told the people they could go find somebody else to. Uh, so yeah, but that and an occasional rabbit, uh, things like that. But in general, there weren't a whole lot of those.
Mostly dogs and cats?
Right.
Okay. Do you have a favorite animal?
I We had a couple of golden retrievers
Mhm.
that were favorites of mine, and they both lived to be 13, 14 years old. So
Yeah, so you liked golden retrievers?
yes,
Yeah, they're a good family dog.
right.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so what were some of the unusual experiences of working with animals?
Oh, well, just that first year, I had called one after late afternoon, a fellow that lived not probably about within 5 miles of the clinic, and he had been trying to deliver a calf from this first year uh, yearling that had been pregnant, and when I got there, he had taken lard and smeared it all over the perineal area, and it was a mess. So I ended up cleaning off the whole area and put on my glove and reached inside, and I found out why he was having trouble, because the head and neck were turned heading north rather than south.
Oh, no.
And so once I found out what the problem was, why I used a couple of obstetrical chains, dropped them over the front legs, and grabbed hold of the head and popped it back so that it was heading the right direction. And all of a sudden, there was the calf. And the guy says, "How did you do that?" And I said, "Well, that's one reason I went to school." So, had another calf on a Holstein cow that was having difficulties, and that was one that you hear about once in a while, where you hook the obstetrical chains onto their legs and get them all in the right direction and hook it up to a tractor and just turn the switch on the tractor, and each time you did that, you gained a little on the delivery.
So you're helping to pull
Yeah.
the
But-
calf out?
But by myself, I couldn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
So-
Wow. No, I mean, that is why you go to school, because you think all these things are natural, they happen, but
Right.
sometimes there are problems, and then you need to have somebody who has done it before.
Right,
So that's where you go to school for.
that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me about your family. Did your wife worked with you in the office sometimes?
Well, to start with, she was busy enough at home.
How many children?
7.
7 children. Yes, she was busy.
So anyhow, when the last of them got into high school, then she came in, started helping out, and eventually she qualified as a technician, and as did my oldest daughter, and so it was the two of us, and she would not come in the evening usually. I had evening hours that ran like from 7 to 8, and she usually stayed home for that.
So what has kept you busy in retirement?
Oh,
Because you've been retired for about 24 years? Yeah, about that much.
About that.
So what kinds of things have you been doing?
Well, I belonged to a couple of different organizations, and for a long time, I was still a registered veterinarian, and I was a part owner of the Dayton Emergency Clinic. And so once in a while, I'd get called on to help out there. Didn't happen that often, but it did happen. Well, I started carving. It was back in 1967 that I carved my first animal, and that was because I was sitting there one day, and I was tired of reading journals, and I just happened to have a piece of a cherry limb behind the hospital for some reason. I can't even remember why it was there. I cut a section of that off and made it into a turtle and gave that to my wife for a present. And that started, I would do one thing a year to give to her. And then one year I did an animal of some sort for each of the children. And after that, I joined the Kettering Carving Club and really got involved with doing more carving. And I used to show pieces at the Dayton artistry and wood showing, which was a regional show. And over the years, I garnered a couple of blues and one that was second best of show.
How about, do you have grandkids? I assume with 7 kids, you have a few grandkids.
Only 24.
24. Any great-grandkids?
6.
6,
And I
wow.
think there's one on the way.
Yeah, are they nearby?
Some of them,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah.
But most of them now, the youngest is in high school. And the next youngest is in college at Ohio State. So
Yeah. So they're growing up.
yeah,
Yeah, they're going to have their own families.
right.
No?
And it's one of those things that it's hard to keep track of them.
When you have 24, yeah,
Yeah.
that's a
Yeah.
lot. Yeah, well, I wanted to show this is a picture of you when you retired. This one right here, let's see, it's this one is a picture of you right there when you retired. And this is a more recent one in 2024 showing this little tag and it tells a little story about you. This is Al Price
Yeah.
is put this one together about you. And he was also a guest here for our podcast. So that's something I wanted to bring as well. So sounds like you had an interesting life. Has it?
Well, I'd like to keep busy.
Yeah, you do like to keep busy and keep your brain active and
Right.
yeah. So what's next for you? What do you look forward to?
Well, I follow the Lady Flyers basketball team and I follow volleyball team. And now I used to travel with some away games, particularly with the basketball girls. But I have having more problems walking around, and I'm going to have to give up. They put a moniker on me and call me Traveling Tom.
Because you traveled to so many?
Yeah, they're with the women basketball. 2 years ago, I guess it was, I went to West Palm Beach, but I had what I call guardian angels who kind of watched over me. There are 2 couples that were really great. And but I've been to New Orleans, I've been to Naples, Florida, and routinely I go up to Bonaventure in New York State. And I haven't been to places like Fordham or Massachusetts, but most of the others I've been to, and I just enjoy it. I try to back them a little bit.
Yeah. It's fun to have a hobby.
Right.
Watching the basketball. And why the Lady Flyers? Why is that one? Did you have kids play there or
No.
no?
Well, people ask me, which one's your granddaughter? And I say, they all are my grandchildren. And after a game now, there are several of them who are going to come by and give me a hug. So, but it's, I don't know of anything. Well, I do know that I used to have men's tickets, and they got to be pretty expensive. And I also lost contact with, or just did not like the way they were playing. And so I started watching the women, and they played more like what I thought they should be. And volleyball was another story. friend of mine who was in school here at UD, he lived over in Honolulu, and we were over visiting, and he said, "Hey, you want to go to a volleyball game tonight?" And I said, "Yeah, why not?" So we went to the volleyball game, and it was a men's volleyball game, and it was just speed, nothing but speed, and that sold me on volleyball.
Did you ever play athletics? Did you ever play volleyball or basketball? Or
No, in college, I played some intramural baseball, but that was about the extent of it. When I was in high school, I was a chubby guy, and so I was not inclined.
Not horribly athletic.
Right. And then when I was at UD, I was a football student manager, and that's as close as I came to athletics.
Yeah. Some people are good at managing, and some people are good at athletics.
Right.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing your stories today and for coming on our program and sharing a little bit about the things that a doctor would have done, in the farm areas of the 60s. So I appreciate you being here today.
Well, you're welcome.
So I will go ahead and close by thanking MVCC for helping to produce this podcast, and to my guest, Dr. Thomas Connair. If you have an interesting story about Centerville or Washington Township, please contact Centerville-Washington History. Please also come visit our museums, Uptown Centerville, Tuesday through Friday, 12 o'clock to 4 p.m. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram, and check our events page at centervillewashingtonhistory.org. Thank you and goodbye.